Hello, Martin.
Hi, Deirdre. Good to see you. It's been a little bit of time since we've had,
Yes,
we both had breaks. So
that's
nice
right.
to be
We
back.
closed. Nice to be back. Closed out season one, and here we are, season two.
Yeah, yeah. And hopefully a lot of people are joining us. It looked like we'll have a good crew, which is really, really great. So tell me, it's been a few months. What's new with you?
Well, always learning a lot in sync with this show, but did launch a new children's book as a part of the Whisper from Noel series. It's called Grandma, You Give Me Courage. And this one is all about courage and being brave. And all proceeds go to the College of New Jersey and a fund that's set up for psychology students. So we were really excited to keep going on with our book and giving.
That is really great. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
hopefully you sell a lot of copies because it's a really, really good cause.
Well, thank you. And how about you?
I actually am excited. Well, one, I'm teaching a lot this fall. I have three sections, so a lot of students, which is fantastic. Some of whom I think will be joining us today, which is great.
Good.
And I've joined the York Schulich School of Business Future of Marketing Institute as associate director, and that's an institute started by another professor at York, David Rice, and it's all about where we might be heading. So if anyone's interested, we share a lot of content on LinkedIn. Just check out the Future Marketing page.
That's terrific, Morton. And now I guess let's dive in. Or do you want to talk a little bit about what's to come in the months ahead?
Yeah, so we actually next month, and we'll be releasing the date soon, we're going to be talking about generative AI and how to talk to machines. And then in December, we're going to have another conversation about how to get into the flow and kind of just make sure that you can enjoy your holidays and you don't get too stressed. And then lots more stuff in the new year as well.
Yes. All right. Well, with that said, let's get to today's special guest, who now is an alum on the DM show.
Yes.
We have Brian Honigman coming back to join us. Brian is a Philadelphia based social media and content marketing consultant. He's an adjunct professor, and he too is a LinkedIn learning instructor. Brian helps organizations develop actionable strategies to earn results with their digital marketing, social media, and content marketing initiatives. And with that said, let's bring Brian in.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian.
Hi. Hi, Deirdre. Hi, Martin. How's it going?
It's going
Good.
well. How about
Yeah.
with you?
I'm well. Happy to be back. I looked back, and the first time we had this chat was in February, which feels like a different year. That feels so far back. So good to be here again and chatting about all things marketing.
Yeah, I think a different decade. Last
Yeah.
February was definitely a different decade than we're in now because of the pace of change. And just, to anyone who's joined us, put who you are in the comments. It would be really great. Tell us who you are. And if you have any questions throughout the show, because it's going to go by fast, please post them and we will do our best to get to them.
Yes. So, in the spirit of learning, and we just mentioned we were here together in February, Brian, has anything changed or significantly shifted in terms of learning and maybe skills that you want to share, if you can think of anything?
Yeah. So much has shifted in the marketing space, in the economy, a lot of things happening all the time. One thing that I touched on last time in February that I want to reiterate is that something I've seen with marketers in how they're presenting their skills and experiences is how they're positioning themselves. Oftentimes, I do a lot of career coaching for marketers who have a job and they want to move on to their next opportunity, or they're looking for work. They got laid off in this kind of tumultuous economy, particularly impacting certain sectors. Um, is that oftentimes all marketers are like positioning themselves exactly the same. Like they don't really stand out differently, meaning we all in marketing touch on different areas. So sometimes when we just list that on the resume or on our LinkedIn or in conversations about ourselves, it's like, yeah, I do email, I do social, I have experience in PR, I have experience in this, and then it just becomes marketers all just look like different folks with the same lists of skill sets. So, in continuing to position yourself to stand out and to remain relevant, I really recommend, no matter the skill of the moment, to niche down a bit, but don't niche down too much. Okay. Meaning, get clear on what your kind of core marketing areas are, that like where your major experience is, your expertise. Have some secondary ones too, that's fine. But get clear in communicating what are your core areas of expertise. And then looking back at your experience, or if you're just starting off, where are the industries that you've had experience in, uh, the types of companies, like the size of the company, um, the sectors that they're in. Um, what else? Your years of experience, and communicating those different facets helps kind of categorize you a little bit more clearly, so that in conversations across your application as an applicant for a new role, your first role in marketing, it's more clear as to where you fit in the marketing landscape. That's like a really big um, positioning element that I want to stress for how
And
to remain
Brian,
relevant.
for that positioning, shouldn't you also, when you start to go niche, but not too niche, shouldn't it be around your passion and what you want to do as well? In other words, if you're putting
Yeah.
all of the things that you do, but you don't really care about them, that's how people are searching and may find you.
Yeah, that is a good point that I didn't stress, is that in those kind of core areas, maybe it's three different things, you have to have some genuine interest in some aspects of it. We're not going to love everything we do in our jobs and our careers. It's not possible to love it 100%. I'd like to be super
Wish we could.
realistic. I wish we could, but it's just we're humans. We get, whatever. But yeah, I would say those core areas, at least some aspects of them should be fulfilling to you, that drive you, get you excited to keep moving forward. Um, so, anyways, that's the first thing I want to stress. Of course, AI is the big thing everybody's talking about. Generative AI specifically. I don't claim to be an AI leader or expert or anything, but what I just recommend to everybody is continuing to explore how generative AI can integrate into your existing workflow, and experiment with the different tools on a consistent basis to get a grasp of how it helps you perform better in your role as a marketer. So that's definitely a big one. Not a major change there, but I feel like the thing I'm seeing is that there's lots of conversations about AI, but over the last year, for marketers, it's really narrowed in on generative AI.
Yeah, it really has. And AI isn't new. I mean, we could talk
Yeah.
about that all day. It's been operating in the background for a long, 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 long time, except now we have the tools to be able to create things with it. It's so funny because I think one of the challenges too for skills, because it's really good advice to make yourself stand out. Because, as you were saying, Brian, resumes kind of all look the same. You need a resume, but how can you make yourself stand out with your positioning, with how you're telling your story, really with how you're sharing content and showing how you think on social media? And it's not easy, but if you can do that, you really can stand out from people. Just before we go on to the next question, I just want to welcome a few people. So Magdalena Butena, who is from Winnipeg, welcome. Paula Magdalena, who I said is from Sweden. Tilak is here. Jessica, Rebecca from Western Canada, Carolina, welcome. And if you have any question, please let us know. And actually, we do have one question that we'll go to from Carolina, since she posted it. What would be some good advice on how to explore a new career path?
I'll jump in
Um,
here.
sure,
If
go.
unless you have something, Brian, did you want to?
Lead the way.
I was just going to say, talk to people who have that career experience. That's what I've always found, is that when you can find people who are in it, they're doing something that you want to do, it's through their rich immersion in a career that you can learn so much, and even shadow, quite possibly.
I love that. A first step to find these people is use LinkedIn and find folks in the career path that you look up to, that you think haven't done something interesting in their career that you want to model after. And some of it is talking with them directly. And then other times you can kind of shadow and just kind of see the steps they've taken. And you may not even need to engage with them, on a one-to-one level. Like I often feel like the career mentorship stuff, the like old school version of it, is it like you're sitting at a desk and talking to your superior in front of you. I don't know. For me, I have a lot of career mentors that I don't even really know, that I just see what they're doing. I'm like, oh, cool. That could be a step that I should consider exploring. So I love that as a kickoff, Deirdre, is talking to folks or modeling your approach after what's worked well for others. And LinkedIn is a really useful tool for that. And of course, you can just reach out to those people and say, hey, can I have an informational interview? Or, way less formal. It's just like, hey, up for a virtual coffee. I'd love to learn how you broke into this field. I'm trying to transition into this career path.
Yeah, but do it in kind of an authentic and not a spammy way, because
Yes.
you want to show people who you are and what you can offer them as well, in addition to you just getting that interview.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Being direct of like, what do you like? So I like that advice, Martin, of like, don't be so like transactional and like inauthentic and just reaching out and being like, what can you give me? Give me an interview. But then also we want a balance of like being direct and not having this whole like life story in there either, of like, hi. So the way to do it is like, show that you put in some research. Like, hey, I listened to that podcast that you were on, and it really struck me that you find AI is impacting manufacturing in this way. So that's why I'm reaching out. I was interested in your viewpoint. I'd love to find time to learn how you broke into the field, right? Like there's a little bit of research in there to show some genuine interest. And then you're also have that ask and not keeping it like, too vague in an attempt to like be conversational. Like I feel like I've seen the opposite, where there's like the whole life story and all the context. And it's like, oh, on the other end, you're like, wait, what is the action I'm supposed to take? And we want to avoid that.
Yes, absolutely. Customize, customize, customize. I'm going to bring the questions back to AI, just because that's all I talk about these days anyway. But really, the whole notion of all these tools happening, nobody really knows exactly how they work. We're all feeling overwhelmed. There's an expression that came out. Everyone's heard of FOMO. Well, this expression is FOBO, the fear of becoming obsolete. And it's starting to feel really real to all of us, because we don't know what to do. So any advice around how to avoid FOBO, or at least minimize it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's okay to have that fear of being obsolete. The first step is like recognizing that feeling might be coming from insecurity, nervousness that you may become irrelevant, and then just acknowledging that as a first step. But then the step after that is taking some form of action, right? So that you're not just recognizing this new thing is on the horizon, or in the case of AI, it's here with us now. It's been here for years. It's just like more in the peripheral. Is taking action towards getting up to date in the areas that are of value to you in your career. The kind of like 3-step process, to keep it simple, and it's something I'm trying to work on for myself, is to learn, assess, and test. So learn the landscape as best I can in small ways throughout my workday. So it's not a big disruption. In some ways I'm like, oh, another thing I have to learn. But by taking LinkedIn learning courses, Martin has a great course on generative AI for digital marketers, I think is the title. Or I signed up for an email newsletter. It's called Superhuman by Zane Khan. And it's like AI news updates about the space, things different businesses are doing, and it's helping me like learn and assess learn the overarching space and see what's all is out there as a starting point. So it's like passive learning. And then on the assess stage, you're taking in all this information and then figuring out what does it mean for you and your role, the company you work at. This amazing quote that I'm obsessed with right now. So the CEO of Section, which is like a course company, education company, his name's Gregory Shove. He said on LinkedIn, you set your AI agenda, not big tech. And I like that because it was, for me, it was a reminder that there is a lot of hype out there, but some of the hype is for good reason. What's the like middle ground where you can assess all the news and discussions about what's happening out there and make sure that it is applied to your unique circumstances? Don't let Google's latest update or TikTok or whatever tell you what you have to do in your career. You take the news that they give you, you take the news from different AI experts and apply it to your circumstances. So in a sense, you're learning, filtering that information and applying it to assessing how it can be applied to your role. And then the most straightforward, not easy though, is testing. Playing around with these tools yourself, seeing how other companies are doing, trying to integrate AI in thoughtful ways across your workflow. I don't know. I'm testing right now. My tool of the moment is all the social networks, or many of them, the big players are integrating AI into their ad platforms. So you can create kind of first draft ads on TikTok or Facebook, or sorry, on LinkedIn through their AI platform. It's almost like some initial brainstorming. TikTok has this like script tool to make you enter in a prompt like you would on Bing's AI chat or chat GPT. And then TikTok's tool script, I think it's, what is it called? Script editor will basically build out a script of different dialogue and scenes that you might create in a TikTok video ad. But guess what? They're just like, okay, they're just a starting point. It's just like an initial idea on like, how can I, promote this product, or how can I thoughtfully integrate with this creator? And it's a nice first step. So anyways, basically learning what's out there and seeing all the latest news and trends and whatnot, assessing how it matters to you, and then applying some of that through testing and actually trying out these different tools.
Brian, what do you think about even at the learning point? So learn, assess, test. Would you put another filter before learn? Only because with fear of becoming obsolete, just like FOMO, we might be spending too much time in areas that don't even matter, or shiny objects that look like it, but in 5 years won't even be around or matter to us as professionals.
Couldn't agree more. I guess I've kind of done that without saying it, because a lot of these processes that I'm saying learn, assess, and test, but it's like I've put together this process and categorizing it in hindsight was just kind of like going for it. So it's easier for me to say than, anyways. So what I would do is make sure you find trusted sources. So like I like LinkedIn Learning because I know the quality of the experts they bring in to teach a class. So that's why I'm like, and I obviously know Martin. So I'm like, ooh, Martin has a course in AI. He's going to say it in terms that don't feel like hype. Is going to be actionable. It's going to be applicable for right now. So LinkedIn Learning, I like as a trusted source for me. I'm not saying it has to be everybody's go-to, self-paced courses. What I did early on too, to like integrate daily learning, but not too overwhelming, is I signed up for like 3 or 4 AI newsletters, and I got them for like 2 or 3 weeks. And I was like, whoa, that is way too much information. I don't need every Google update on AI or whatever. So I just slowly started unsubscribing to the ones that felt less connected to my day to day. And now I'm pretty much subscribed to one other, which I can't remember, and Superhuman, which pretty much give me the high level industry updates. So I'm like getting enough in day to day, but not feeling, like you said, like overwhelmed by a billion shiny objects. So yeah, finding trusted sources that are helpful for you. Is that
Yeah.
what you've done, Martin and Deidre?
Yeah, that's really, really important. And for me, what I want to do is recommend two quick and easy to read newsletters. The first one is Axios AI Plus. It's free.
Mm.
You can sign up. It's smart brevity. So they take 2 or 3 stories and tell you what they are, what the implications are, and really what you need to know. So that's number one. Second one is a newsletter called The Neuron, Neuron. Again, comes out every day. They've got a great quirky sense of humor that they apply to what we're doing with AI. And so I find between those two, you can really get a lot of information. I want to go to Kimberly's comment that says, where
That's
she
so
says,
fun.
I get so overwhelmed by the possibilities, I don't know where to start, analysis paralysis. And honestly, you know, a good way of doing it, I think, is one thing. Well, think about two things. One, your workflow. What do you do, and what do you want to do? So, okay, maybe you're writing, maybe you're creating social media posts, maybe you're doing some research, maybe you're creating customer personas, whatever that is. But map out your own workflow and then categorize the tools. Because again, part of feeling that FOBO or just feeling overwhelmed is there's so many new tools. But really, if you know, okay, this tool can help me with writing, this tool can help me with design, or in the case of GPT-4 can help you now with writing and design because it's multimodal. And so you think, okay, here's where I could use AI. Here are some of the tools that I could use to test it. And then you get into the learn, test and evaluate or adapt that you were talking about, Brian. I think that's the one thing we have to do is just stop being overwhelmed by figuring out what we do and where we want to go. Oh, Paul asked the second one, Neuron. I'm going to type it in here as I talk.
And just on an aside, you mentioned Axios and Smart Brevity. That's a really good book. It was the founders of Axios who wrote a book called Smart Brevity, and that gets you to concise. So if anybody's interested in learning how to speak concisely and crystallize their point, Smart Brevity is the book to read.
Gotta add that to my list.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren, for sharing that link.
So sometimes, just to add on a little bit about how to take a look at whether you call it your learning model or your learning path, I always break it down into what do I need higher overarching for who I am as a professional, because you're having conversations and there's just good things to know. Then it's how do I become conversant in something because maybe it is what I'm doing for myself or a client. And then it's looking at it from the self mastery position. And that's where I'm going to dive in deep and hard and learn everything. And just knowing that there's going to be different levels. And what I really, really want to do, because learning is a mindset you have to put yourself in, that helps me not to be overwhelmed. And I hope that helps others as well.
Love that.
Okay, Magdalena has a question. So why don't we go to that? And that is, how do you think the use of AI in social media will evolve and impact? Oh, this is good. Will evolve and impact our work as social media managers in the future? Brian, to you.
Yeah, so it's hard to say exactly, but basically, I think what this will mean for marketers is that we will be pushed to move more quickly, to create content more quickly because we have these tools to help streamline the process and help us be a little bit more productive. And that's something that social media or otherwise, a skill that I would stress is how can we all be more efficient with our time as marketers? That's how one of the ways you stay competitive compared to AI and with the help of AI. So I think some of the tasks like drafting out a post or brainstorming, I think a major change for social media managers is the time it takes will be tightened up significantly. And so that's as it applies to social. And just in general, I would work to be, how can you move more quickly without not at the expense of quality, or making sure that you're adding in your own perspective. Um, for social media managers, and again, as marketers as a whole, I think a really big thing that will continue to shift is, how can you make sure you're really strong at getting your company's perspective across with your use of social media, and how, or some other marketing medium that you're, responsible for contributing to at your company. That's a really important way to complement AI. AI will be able to, create all kinds of text and images and different pieces of content based off of the information you provide and the prompts you create. But what it will never really have is an actual unique perspective that your company has curated in your industry. And if you, as a social media manager, are able to articulate that effectively in these individual posts or videos and other resources you create, I think um, that'll help you continue to be competitive, continue to see results for your company. And then just like outside of that, I think as marketers, we all need to be really good at making sure that we understand what our brand's unique perspective is, and making sure that's continuously articulated across channels. So those are some things that come to mind when how things are going to adapt, but it's hard to say for sure.
On the note of, we're pushed to move quickly because AI is moving so fast and everything is changing. I think as a social media manager, that's the sign to check and recheck whatever you're seeing and reading and hearing, and you're matching to a company perspective. You want to make sure that it's accurate, because I know there are instances of AI, if you're not prompting correctly, you get information that isn't
Yes,
exactly as solid as you'd
Yeah.
like it to be. And then add that to your CEO or your company's perspective, and you might have an issue there. So there's some challenges, and ethics come into play as well.
Yeah. Well, fact checking and adding personality. So basically that's what the two of you are saying. Fact check, make sure it's accurate, and
Mhm.
add that personality that you and your company have. Your company's brand voice has developed, but the AI may not have. The AI has speed, but don't be
Right.
taken in by speed. Need to have that human touch.
totally.
Always.
Not speed, but not at the expense of quality. So
Right.
don't just
Yes.
take what it's giving you and launch it out there. I think that's going to create more problems.
I think we have time for one more question. And that would be, I guess, what advice, Brian, would you give someone who wants to develop a flexible skill set? And really, what does that mean to have a flexible skill set? So two-parter.
Yeah. Well, I'll start with flexible skill set. Is that, as I talked about at the beginning, you have these like core areas that, they may change over time, but that you want to be known for, that you enjoy, that you have the most experience in, and communicating them, but not being so strict about not going outside of those boxes, like adapting and changing with what's in demand in your industry and the marketing industry at large, what you're interested in, what your employer is encouraging or requiring you focus on. A flexible skill set is where you're um, being mindful about what your core is, but open to expanding it in complementary areas. From my perspective, how do you develop a flexible skill set? Where you have your core that you're known for, but you can continue to evolve with time. Something that's worked for me, and it just kind of happened this way, is every year I make sure to dive into a really big learning opportunity. So something very active, like an in-depth in-person course, or consistent mentoring from an expert in a certain space, or whatever it may be. One big learning opportunity to really get that self-mastery, as Deirdre was saying, so that it's not just me casually reading, passively reading newsletters or taking like LinkedIn learning courses, which are all great, but they're not the same as really diving deep. So I would recommend, to build a flexible skill set, is making time for one big learning opportunity a year, potentially, and then doing passive learning throughout the year in small doses. So like For the AI stuff, for me, I'm constantly looking at that newsletter I referenced or taking LinkedIn learning courses. But those are small investments throughout the year to like help me slowly fine tune. They don't disrupt my like daily workflow too often. So having a mix of both, going deep in some cases and other times lighter touch, the balance of active versus passive learning.
I agree. And whether it's active or passive learning, Brian, do you find that when you're in a learning mindset, more sinks in? So, in other words, if you're saying, oh, I have to learn this for my employer, or I should learn this, you go into it and it's harder to learn. Whereas if you
Yes.
really want to explore, you want to be a tech tester of AI or just get into something that's self mastery because you want to, then it sinks in and it's so much easier. It's your mindset.
I completely agree. I've experienced that firsthand. I was like, oh, I feel like I need to learn this for XYZ reason. And you go in and you don't get much out of it because you're like
Right.
feeling really forced and um, almost told by whoever that you need to do it. What's worked for me to get over that and move it to the better learning mindset where I'm actually going to retain the information and figure out how to apply it for my circumstances is finding a way to make the learning integrate in my daily workflow or finding some aspect of that topic that is closer to my interests. Like we talked about earlier of like defining your core marketing areas to position yourself. And you're like, wait, we got to make sure we're passionate about stuff too, right? I'm like, of course, that can really help drive your learning. It's like, okay, if there's some aspect of social media related AI that you must learn, you're not exactly thrilled about it, what is some facet of it that would tie to your existing interests to make it more enjoyable? And you'll be more likely, if you find that angle, to retain the info and ensure the learning process is enjoyable. This is supposed to be fun too.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget.
Right. Good advice.
Yes, it is. And you know what? We are at time. These go by so fast. And there were so many great comments and questions that we just didn't get to. So, Brian, we'll have to get you back for a third time at some point,
Yes.
including one question from Lauren, like, what do you think some marketing jobs AI will create in the next year that don't exist now? So that could be a whole other show,
Mm,
you
it
know,
could be.
jobs of the future. Anyway, Brian, thank you so much for
Thank you,
joining us again. And everyone who's out there listening, thank you so much for joining us, for all your comments, questions, and we will see you in about a month from now. Stay tuned for details.
Brian. That's right. Thanks, everybody. See you next month.
Bye.